Um, yep, working. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to our sort of like mini conference, Anti-Trafficking Education in Schools, a conference for students, teachers, and school administrators. My name is Daniela Peterga-Benton. I'm an associate professor at in the Department of Justice Studies at Montclair State University, and also the director of the Global Center on Human Trafficking at Montclair State University. And this event was co-organized between me and a colleague of mine, James Daly, from the College of Human Development, Culture, and Media at Seton Hall University. And the event is also co-sponsored by the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking, which we're very grateful for. Now, in this first segment, we will have a panel discussion for you, which is very, very exciting. But before we go into that, I just wanted to introduce the moderator of this panel, Theresa Flores. Theresa Flores is a survivor of human trafficking, a best-selling author, and the founder of the SOAP Project. She is a licensed social worker, was appointed to the Ohio Attorney General's Human Trafficking Commission in 2009, and has testified before the Ohio House and Senate in support of human trafficking legislation. Additionally, the Theresa Flores Law was passed in Michigan that eliminates the statute of limitations for children who have been trafficked. Ms. Flores was sold in an underground crime ring in an upper middle class suburb outside Detroit from the time she was 15 to 17 years old. She now works with survivors and has researched the health problems of over 200 trafficking survivors and has hosted over 400 women at survivor wellness weekends. In addition to publishing 5 books, Ms. Flores has also received many awards, including the L'Oreal Women of Worth and University of Dayton's Alumni Association 2013 award, the Christian Service Award, and the Courage Award from the Governor of Ohio for her work in human trafficking. So it is a great pleasure to have Theresa here with us today, moderating our panel. This panel will go until about 6 o'clock, and we'll probably take a little break in between before we go into our next session. But I'm kicking it over to Theresa to also introduce you all to this event and why we're here and why it is so important to talk about the issue of human trafficking and schools. So Theresa, take it away.
All right, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Just so everybody knows that they're in the right space, this conference, this webinar is on human trafficking in schools, what teachers need to know. So if that's not you, feel free to stay, but that's what this is going to be about. So as she mentioned that I am a survivor of human trafficking, I was actually trafficked while I was in high school. I went to my high school and still lived at home. And so even though my traffickers were in my school, they were older and a part of a much bigger network. And yet no teachers recognized the signs of me being exploited. So I'm very passionate about educating teachers and counselors, school nurses, the janitor, anybody on what the signs look like if a kid is being trafficked, because that kid is in school more hours than they are at home awake. And so it is really essential. Teachers hear rumors, nurses see signs, physical signs. And so you guys are the perfect audience to really help intervene and help for this to stop before it gets out of control, like it did for many of us on this panel. You guys are pretty much the frontline workers in human trafficking. The average age of trafficking of a child is 13 years of age. I think it's around 12 for boys. And so it's something that, you know, every teacher, every school administrator needs to know the signs and then come up with a protocol, which we'll talk more about on what you can do in your school if you encounter this. Because I think all of us survivors on this panel can guarantee you probably have at least one kid in your school being trafficked. So that is why this is so important. I am going to turn it over to the panelists to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about themselves and kind of why they're here and why this is important to them too. And I will start with Katrina.
Hi, I am Katrina Massey. Thank you so much, Theresa. I am a New York City real estate agent, and when I am not selling homes around the city, I am advocating for victims of sex trafficking. I too am a survivor of trafficking, and I've spent nearly 20 years in direct services doing policy work and also creating awareness around this topic. And thank you for having us today.
Great, thanks. Kwami? Kwami, are you there?
Hello, my name is Kwami Adoboe-Herrera. I'm from the Cleveland, Ohio. I'm a laboratory survivor. I was a child when I was trafficked in the school system. I'm just grateful to be here with all of you today to shed some light on the issue that we are seeing in the school system and how we can come back at it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Cindy?
Hi, my name is Cindy Decker, and I am a survivor of sex trafficking as well as addiction, domestic violence, homelessness, trauma. And I'm with the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking here in New Jersey. I'm on the council as a member, as well as this year's chair for our gala to bring more and more people for awareness and what human trafficking is, and being honored to speak in these places to just give as much information as you need to know what human trafficking is.
Great, thanks, Cindy. Lieutenant Anthony.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Lieutenant Anthony Carugno with New Jersey State Police. I'm the unit head for the Human Trafficking Unit. Back in 2023, we were reorganized into our own standalone unit with, the Human Trafficking Unit. So for the past year or so, we've been trying to spearhead this campaign, if you will, and basically get the word. We're multi-prong approach is the word I like to use. Whether it's getting awareness out, getting the word out of how to report incidents and combat trafficking through our investigations. Right now, currently, we're working on revamping our tip line, the state OAG tip line, to streamline things, database stuff, so that we have some statistical analysis that we can do, so forth and so on. But for me personally, my wife's a high school teacher down in South Jersey. So this is kind of near and dear to my heart, getting the word out, especially to the high schools, well, any school for that matter, because honestly, I don't have the numbers, but I want to say at least 90% of our jobs last year, our investigations that legitimately had a victim, that wasn't just a tip that didn't go anywhere. But out of the jobs we handled last year, I want to say 90% of those came from a referral, I want to say, from either DCP&P or a school counselor or a school administrator, and not necessarily a student. So this goes out to you guys, that you are at the forefront. Like I said, 90% of our jobs, I'm just using that. It may even be 100%. The large majority of our jobs last year came from tips and referrals through the high schools and the schools. So you guys are crucial. So we need you. And we want to get the awareness out so you guys know what to look for and how to report it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's in the schools, and we can't rely on students to report this. We know as survivors that we're just waiting for somebody to help us, because we can't speak. So I'm going to start off with the first question. And so any of you panelists, feel free to jump in before I assign it to you. So what is human trafficking, and how does it look in a school environment? Who wants to go?
I can jump in.
Sure.
So as we know, human trafficking is a very serious crime. And it's quite frankly a violation of human rights. What that can look like, it could be say labor trafficking, it could be sex trafficking as well, which those two are the most familiar in this country. And it is through force, fraud, or coercion, unless that student or child is under the age of 16. So how does it look in schools? It can involve recruiting. I've worked with young girls that were recruited by classmates. It can also be through a new friend or boyfriend from outside of school that may be a bit older, and sometimes they're not. You know, we've come in contact with more traffickers that are peers. So that person may appear to be my boyfriend. It may appear to be, you know, my best friend's boyfriend, and we're now all hanging out together. And that's the main way that I've seen in the work that I've done with victims. And even in my circumstance, I met someone who was much older than me when I was in high school. And he wasn't upfront with his age, and most of the time they are not. And he became my boyfriend, and he took very good care of me, or at least what I thought, you know, in my high school mind. And some of the things that I know that teachers miss is I started showing up with much nicer items than what I typically had. You know, I had a new hairstyle every other week, and throughout my entire high school career, I never gotten a manicure, and now all of a sudden my nails are done. So those are some signs on what that can look like in a school environment.
Great, thanks. Anybody else want to jump in?
I can jump. Yeah, sure. So as Katrina mentioned, it's basically the exploitation through force, fraud, or coercion. And it can be either labor trafficking or commercial sex trafficking. Here in New Jersey, the age is 18. So anyone under 18 that's engaging in this is considered, they can't be consensual. So if somebody's under the age of 18 and being exploited like this, it's automatically considered human trafficking. Like Katrina said, in a school environment, it may not look like what you expect. It could show up in subtle ways. Students with, like she said, new clothing, manicure, electronics that they can't afford, gifts, essentially. They're being given these gifts as a payment or, you know, as part of coercion. Sudden changes in behavior, unexplained absences, we've seen that. A lot of times our referrals come from DCP&P, and or DCF. And typically those are habitual runaways. So if you have an absentee problem or a habitual runaway issue, those are large signs. For the nurses and or medical staff out there, a lot of times we've seen physical abuse, you know, unexplained bruises, cigarette burns, iron burns. Our most notable case last year, you know, whipping marks all up and down her back. And then you've probably heard of branding. So branding is something that's usually done by the traffickers as well. And like Katrina said, friends or classmates sometimes recruit, or it's that boyfriend that you know, grooms the victim, or girlfriend in some cases, that grooms the victim into this world of trafficking, and then they are exploited from there.
Right, thank you. We can't also forget familial trafficking, because 35 to 40% from what we know, I mean, statistics are really hard in this field, but from what we believe, it's about 35 to 40% of trafficking is happening by family members. So it might not be a boyfriend, and they might not be coming in with nice new things. They might be falling asleep in class because they're up all night doing whatever there is expected of them, marks on them. We see a lot of you know, tummy aches and migraines because their bodies are dealing with this trauma. So missing school. So we have to always remember that it could be a parent. I was doing a speaking engagement at a Catholic church or Catholic high school, and a young girl, 14, a ninth grader, came up and said, my mom used to sell me to the landlord to pay the rent. And so that is not uncommon. It can be for drugs, for money, and other things. So we can never forget that. Let's move on to how can human trafficking. Oh, and also I forgot to tell our audience, if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A. And then after we get through the panel, we will definitely address those. Thank you. So how can human trafficking affect students? Kwami, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. Yes. uh, uh, just going off the first question you guys were answering. I mean, you guys hit a nail on that. It can be anything. You know, my trafficker was my uncle, and I was in school and I was a minor. So as you can see, traffickers can be anybody. It can be anybody. Nobody's immune to those perpetrators. They see you as a money that they're going to take advantage of you, regardless of who you are, your status is. How does trafficking affect a student in the classroom? Man, let me just put it this way. It was traumatic. It was difficult. I had a lot of pain. My life was miserable. My uncle made me feel like I was nothing but trash. He thinks all I am to him is money. I was someone who came from a different country and not knowing what English is, how to speak it, how to write it, was 10 times harder. I was making fun of. I felt lonely. The days I come to school sleeping because I have no time to sleep at home because I was working day in, day out. Everything I have to do was controlled by my trafficker. I am not allowed to leave his side. He called the school 24/7 to check on me every hour of the day, just to make sure I'm there. He has brainwashed me to depend on him. I'm not allowed to trust any of the authorities. I'm not allowed to talk to any teachers. Just think of it for a second. What were you doing at 7 years old? Let me ask that question. What were you doing at 7 years old? So I can tell you, you and I, we had a different view on what I was doing at 7 years old. Those case situations. The effects that had on me still stay with me to this day.
Thank you, Kwame. That's really tough. Thanks for being vulnerable. I can feel your pain, you know, that kind of everybody let you down. Nobody was there for you to step forward and say, hey, why are you in pain? Well, you know, you're 7. Why are you know? So I'm sure that the people thought like, wow, something unusual is going on. But we as survivors need you to realize that your gut instinct is usually right, and we need you to step forward to say something, especially a 7-year-old little boy, right? And I'm so proud of Kwame being on here too, representing the males who've been trafficked. You know, we've traditionally thought that 20% of trafficking survivors were male, but that's because they don't come forward very often and don't identify. So the recently I heard that it could be as high as 50% of trafficking victims are male. So thank you, Kwame, for you know, being vulnerable, coming on here. Cindy, what would you say? Like, how did human trafficking affect you as a student?
So I truly believe going back to the beginning where you come from is extremely important as to why you're so vulnerable, and how it deeply impacts you. So for me, you know, it carries an invisible wound. You walk around, you know, you show up in how we act and learn we can't connect the same way. So, you know, living in shame and silence and fear, judgment, you know, isolation, you know, your behavior, we don't know it's not our fault. Our bad behavior, it's actually a survival response. It is a survival response. So I came from a very unsafe environment from day one. A mother I did not bond with, that did not care about me, did not teach me anything, didn't have a father that protected me. So with that foundation of abuse and neglect and trauma and shaping my childhood, those wounds, my relationship with my mother was just marked with coercion, manipulation, fear, abuse, mentally, psychologically, physically, keeping me in a trauma bond, which is confusing. It's a cycle of pain. So if that is where you're coming from, now you're going to school to escape, and you see a different personality because you are now free to be truly who you are or who you think you are. You know, the feelings of abandonment and powerlessness drive your vulnerability to these traffickers that's who they go after, the most vulnerable. Just a compliment that you receive, because you don't receive those things, that love, that validation, that care, that acceptance. You don't know the warning signs to protect yourself. So there's a lot of fear, anxiety, shame, and trauma. For me, I acted out in many ways using humor or a silence that I would not want to raise my hand in class, not want to be a part of something because of how I was treated or how I thought of myself. No self-esteem, no self-worth. You are not worthy of anything, of love. So I think really understanding that some of us come from a broken home. Some of us come from such brokenness that it deeply impacts your work. For me, I did not pay attention very well. Did I get in trouble? Absolutely. I was also very talkative, but I was also very silent. So there would be this difference. It affects everybody differently. You know, you try to be somebody you're not, just to hide behind something, but you can't go to anyone because you don't trust anyone. So, you know, can I go into the next question? Because
Sure.
that
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah. What role
What can teachers do?
Mhm.
Well, this is a tough one, because first off, you know, you don't have to have all the answers, and building trust with a student, accepting them, having the awareness and compassion, just supportive personality, just by listening, but you must create a safe place. In my senior year, I had a drug problem, and I was brought to the counselor's office. And again, drug abuse is another, that is another red flag for trauma. And I walked into a room of my friends, and it was sitting around at a table. And I walked in, it was an intervention, and I walked right out, because that is our survival response. Now, it happened again. They did not give up. So I go back, the same thing happens. This time I stay and listen, because I'm in that safe environment. So it's going to take more than once or twice to do these things. And like I said, everybody's different, but in this situation, you're vulnerable, you don't trust, and really be careful of who you involve. Because at that moment, I was now going to go off to a detox and rehab in my senior year. However, I said, do not call my mother, you call my father. That trust was broken immediately. So it's really important that we get a choice and that you actually hear us.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, very good. Kwami, what could teachers have done to help either prevent or detect you being trafficked?
Like they have an opportunity. So can you hear me fine? Okay, perfect. Some of the things are as a minor when I was in the school system, there was nothing that I can think of that could prevent what I was going through. One, because I was not from this country. It was one of those things, a situation where I couldn't get the help I needed because my trafficker was in charge of everything I was doing. He made sure that I rely on him only, and on so that's what I did. And so he's all I got here. And I came here as a minor, and all my parents are still in my country, and all my family members are still in the country. So they trusted me with him, with my trafficker, and that's what they did. And so that's why not I mean, I didn't even know I was being trafficked because I just thought this was normal. This is a lifestyle here. And so I went along with that. And so it, it, the more I think about it, I just made me realize like many many people, many kids who come here, especially who are from different countries that come here, the struggle they have to go through just to make it just to make out of any situation they are, especially not knowing the language and knowing the people that you trust, it's very difficult for them. It's quite difficult. And so nothing, I don't think there was nothing that could prevent me being trafficked in this country. There's nothing, because I didn't know what was going on, and I don't know what I was experiencing. My trafficker was in charge.
Which is why it's so important for adults, others to detect that. Lieutenant Anthony, since you were saying that most of the time it's the teachers and other people with these calls, what do you think teachers can do to detect or prevent this?
I think Cindy hit the nail on the head with building trust. Whether it's a teacher or counselor, or even a nurse or something along those lines. Just building that trust, building a relationship with the students, just being a consistent, supportive adult figure in their life. I feel like that's the best avenue as far as schools and teachers go. That way, I know they have a duty to report, and it could violate that trust in certain situations. But I think that's what teachers can do, is maybe relay the signs to someone who has a better understanding or better knowledge of it. Whether it's us at the state police or reaching out to you guys, the coalition or something along those lines, where they can say, hey, I don't know what I have here, but this is what I'm seeing. So if they can keep their eyes open, if they can look for these red flags that we're talking about, looking for these changes in behavior or these warning signs, that's why their role is so critical. Because I forget who said it earlier, like they're in school more than they're at home. So um, they're going to see some of these signs and some of these flags, and hopefully now they know after being sitting on it, through this webinar that they now know some of these signs, and they know how to get, refer the signs to somebody, either get more help or actually contact law enforcement if it's necessary. But like I said, it's a fine balance between building that trust and then, I'm going to go not turn you in, but I'm going to go notify the authorities. And next thing you know, we're either us or DCP&P is like removing the child from a home, which is most likely warranted, but you're tearing that student's life apart. So it's a very fine line and a very delicate balance. Just so everyone knows where we're coming from, and everybody on the panel heard me talk about it last week, was we try and take a victim-centric approach, a trauma-informed approach. So like, we're not arresting we're not arresting victims. We're basically, and I don't care if you don't tell me your story right away today. Like, I'm not going to sit you down in an interview and you got to give me your story today. No, we're going to sit down and we're going to ask you if you're okay. What can we do for you? We're going to start from our initial contact. We're going to build a relationship with you. If you ever come to tell us your story, great. If not, fine. We've had victims call us 6 months later. Hey, what are you up to? And we do check in on our contacts from time to time. And we've gotten calls 6 months later. We're looking at one right now. She called us a month after we had our initial approach. So it takes some time. We do check in. I don't want to say we're like the typical police where we just go in and arrest people. We also take that victim-centric approach where we try and build that rapport with the victim, because this is an entirely different situation. It's not like a drug dealer on the corner and it's quote unquote a victimless crime. This is probably the biggest victimization you could have, something like this. So we do extensive training on it, on how to take that approach, and we try and do our best with it. But as far as teachers, nurses, and counselors, and even janitors, anyone in the school, keep your eyes open. You're going to hear a lot of these red flags and signs. Look for the signs. And if you're unsure, contact us, contact the coalition, or anybody here on the panel, and I'm sure we could point you in the right direction, get you more information. And the state does have a 24/7 monitored hotline, so you can look that up through Google. I could give it to you, but I'm not going to plug anything right now. So,
All right, thank
Teresa, do you mind if I jump in
Yeah,
on
I
this
was just
real
going to ask
quickly?
you if you wanted to jump.
When I think about, what we do, especially when it's direct services or when you're having direct contact with the child, it's one of the most important pieces is prevention. Because when I was trafficked, I didn't know I was trafficked because I didn't have the verbiage, I didn't have the vocabulary or the knowledge of what trafficking was and what that looked like or what that felt like. So not only just building trust, but we have to educate the students. We have to arm them with the information as well, so that it can prevent more children to be trafficked. And also, from the other side of it is, once a child is trafficked, and I've worked with youth that we've got them out of the life, they have services, they're back at home, and they're back in school. And some people in their mind they think, okay, once that part is over, the trauma then ends. It doesn't. The same things that we were mentioning of just certain behaviors in class and responses, you're still going to have to deal with that after the trafficking, because the trauma still exists. So even if you're dealing with a teenager who was previously trafficked, just understand what comes with that. Those emotions and those feelings don't dissipate now that they're not being trafficked. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And the prevention piece is so big to me, because that's the only way that we can educate students to, we're talking about the victim, but also we don't want the students to become buyers. We don't want the students to become traffickers themselves. So having these moments of education and awareness prevents trafficking from happening on all sides.
Yeah, thank you. It is so important to see those signs. She made a good point about how once a victim is discovered and receiving services and going back to school, most likely they're going to be very angry at the world, right? You know, it's not going to be like, oh, thank you for rescuing me. It's not that way, you know. They might dress very provocatively and really searching for attention. These are normal trauma responses that then most people will be like, oh, that's a bad kid, they're running away. Well, why are they running away? Let's look into this, you know. And I know all the teachers and social workers are so busy and they're, you know, divided up between several schools. But this is really crucial. We have hundreds of thousands of kids being trafficked in our country today. And the schools that we need to do a better job at that, of identifying these and prevention of it. There are some prevention programs. The New Jersey Coalition has some great materials as well if you go onto their website. So let's go on to the next one. What role can students play? What do they need to know about how to share their concerns? Who would like to take that one?
Get started with that one. I've spent a lot of time with kids in high school and middle school and doing awareness and education events. And there has never been a single moment that someone didn't walk up to me at the end and say, hey, I have this friend, and they give me a scenario and they're like, I think this is what's going on, or I know this is what's going on. And who can I tell, you know, where can I go with that? I mean, hundreds and thousands of kids, as you mentioned. So every single school. And we're not saying that just to, you know, we're not blowing up the number or making it more than what it is. We have to know. And as caretakers, as social workers, as teachers in those spaces, I always remind them to take a beat, because they get caught up in the day-to-day operations and, oh, I got to do writing plans. Oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. And go with your gut. Because if you feel like, that seems a little off, or that seems a little wrong. And I tell students the same thing. You have this best friend that you've had since 5th grade, and all of a sudden they're distant. All of a sudden they're, you know, their emotions are high in one moment and low the next. Have that safe place. You know, we always talk about having a safe word. Like, know who that person is that you can go to and say, hey, I don't know. What can I do? Where do I go? Can you just check in on that person and see where it goes from there?
That's great advice. I do that when I speak to high schools as well, is tell all the kids, recognize, like, identify one person in their life that they could tell anything to, like that one safe person. And even if nothing's happening to you now, just always remember that in case something happens. It's good to already know that. So that trust and safety is really huge. Cindy, what role do you think students can play?
So obviously, you know, with friends and the signs, of course, being able to speak up without proof that they may not be sure it's going on, but they really want to do something. So creating a safe space for the person that's not being trafficked to be able to come to them without proof, because we don't like having to prove what has been going on and what's been done to us. We don't have to do that. Be safe, non-judgmental. You know, if your group is not a safe group, you may want to break off and you know, figure out something else one-on-one, because you're afraid that they'll isolate you from the group. So there's a lot of different things kids have to deal with, even for themselves, of how they're perceived. Your voice matters, and yours matters, the victim as well as the friend who is really wanting to stand up for their friend. And just creating that culture of compassion in this world. I mean, we need more compassion just in general. So to be able to be in that space of compassion where exploitation of any kind, with or without proof, is not tolerated, that you learn early on that this is wrong, this is very wrong, and I won't tolerate this injustice to my friend or whoever it is. You don't even need to be friends with them. You could just be observing. And I think one thing that is really, really important it's not your fault. That gives the victim strength. It just does. It's still scary. You still are in survival mode. You don't even know what other modes there are. You just know survival. So it's really important that they know it's not their fault. I think that's really another good one to lead with. That shows that compassion.
Yeah, that's really good. It's almost like bullying, right? And looking out for one another. When we talk about sextortion, which is the #1 threat to teenagers today, it's the #1 threat to their mental health, and more so boys than girls even. And so we're starting to get some stronger sextortion laws. And just so you know, sextortion is not human trafficking, but it can lead to human trafficking. So obviously we have such pressure on kids these days, you know, sending nude pictures, and it's acceptable, and yet people in the wrong hands can use that against someone. So having those conversations in school is really important. We see that a lot of times, and I'm sure the lieutenant could agree with this, we see a lot of times where if somebody is being sextorted for these pictures, meaning they're being blackmailed, they will tell another student. They will tell not necessarily a parent or a teacher, but they'll tell another student. So we really need to open up those conversations with kids in schools about this, because the suicide rate for this happening is off the chart. So it's something like when we did DARE, right, against drugs, and we've done the good touch, bad touch. The human trafficking, unfortunately, is that next conversation that we need to have every day in every school, unfortunately. So I felt really important to bring up sextortion in this. Another thing that students can do is they can take a proactive step on educating their other students on human trafficking. They can create an anti-human trafficking club, where they show movies, they sell fair trade items. Kids can get really creative on how can I educate my fellow students on human trafficking, and not just for other countries, but for how it's happening here. So students really can play a really important role. They're very interested in this issue. If you want to take it back to slavery and bring it up to today, or just human rights and social justice, right? So students are really, really want to know about this. For us that speak at high schools, the kids are enthralled with this issue, and they really want to stop this. So,
Can I
so once
just
we,
hold on?
yeah, go ahead, Kwame.
Back on that question, what you see, what role can student play? Now, to this from a personal experience, when I was in the middle school, and I mean, my friend didn't know I was being trafficked, I was being abused at home, because I never told them that. Again, we have to be mindful, and of the survivor, or that person, that victim that is going through it. They don't technically need to share that with anybody. Because I as a male, and also as being someone who's from a different country, not knowing the language, I feel the sense of shame, and I still feel that kind of shame to this day. not to share that with my friends because I didn't feel like I need to, and it was something I feel like I would be make fun of, and so it's not their fault. And it's not my fault. It just the society has written these laws, against me, and so I have to do what society tells me to do. And that is, don't talk about this situation. Don't share this with your friends, because if you do, they make fun of you, and which is kind of silly, but some kids do, and so it took a lot of tolls on me to this. Some of my friends didn't know what happened to me when I do tell them. I mean, I saw I have one of my friends plays football. He's played for the Redskins, and when he finally found out what happened to me, he was shocked that I was going through this. I never told him, and I thought out to him, I didn't want you to make fun of me. I didn't want you to think I was weak, And so there are kids that will feel that way, and that to you guys point you made earlier, I for me, I wasn't seeking attention. I didn't want to seek attention. I didn't want any attention on me at all. And there were four of us, I was one of the four kids. We just want to get to school and get the good grade, and that's it. That's what we were told to do, and that's what we continue to do so, and stay out of trouble and stay in our lane. And so there are those type of students out there who have been trafficking, who looks like they are doing everything correct, but technically they are not. They are struggling. So we have to always be mindful of that. And as more as I'm in the school system that doing trainings, I tell kids that, and they sometimes like, wow, okay, I need to make my friend. I need to start making fun of my friends, or I need to start. I need to be mindful of how I say things. I won't. Those who have different languages, those who speak different languages, because kids are mean. Kids can be mean, and so we just need to be mindful, and we need to let our kids know that be mindful of how you talk and how you say things around those who don't speak the same language as you, or look the same as you. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Kwami. So Lieutenant Anthony, how can schools and teachers share information with other family members, community members, police? Obviously you guys are, teachers are all mandated reporters, as are nurses and social workers. So that you have to report that generally to Children's Services. But how can we do a better job working together and collaborating?
This is probably one of our pronged approaches, if you will. Um, it's a community approach, like getting the community together, getting the community involved. I think Katrina touched on it a little bit, that you got to get the knowledge out there of what trafficking is, whether it's the community, the staff, or the students. Like, students may not know exactly what it is or what it looks like. The grooming, the manipulation, stuff like that. So once the students kind of have had some sort of awareness training, or awareness assembly, let's say, then they kind of know what the signs are. Then if they see something in their friends or themselves, then they should know how or where to mention it, whether it's a trusted school resource officer, counselor, or whatever. The community approach, like I said, host it, like the school can host these events just like this, whether we're presenting to the teachers and the staff and the nurses, here to tell you guys, these are the signs, this is what to look for, so forth and so on. But also doing something like this on a community night, however you want to do it. There's a myriad of ways you can do it, but do a workshop for parents. Back to school nights, maybe one of those classrooms, you set aside where, whether it's a job fair or what have you, but you could do an awareness night. They could partner with their local law enforcement. They could have us, I'll contact me. I'll see if we can't get one of our detectives to sit in or do a quick session with you. Contacting the survivor advocates. other nonprofits like the Coalition, to come in and present and do some education and prevention. We've done stuff for churches and youth groups. They've reached out to us and said, "Hey, we're doing this community event." We've gone and talked and basically call it human trafficking 101. You know, we give them what it looks like, the signs, as best we can. And that's the other half of the problem. We're law enforcement. Like, I haven't been through it. Like, you've heard these stories from all these victims, survivors, and it's jaw dropping. So if you're going to do a community awareness event, I strongly suggest you get a victim survivor in there to do it with you. You need different lenses to look through: the law enforcement lens, or the school's lens, the lens of a administrator or a teacher, and then again the victim survivors lens to understand, to fully understand the enormity of all of it. So, but to answer the question, I think community awareness, events is the best way to get most of this information out there, and to show them to show the community in general of how widespread this is, because it's not just in the cities. Like I talked about it last week, it's everywhere.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're right. The Coalition, you all have an amazing resource right there at your fingertips, is the New Jersey Coalition Against Trafficking. They do presentations. They, like I said, they have materials they put on this webinar. And so utilizing what you have already is really helpful. So I do want to go around to our amazing survivor leaders and ask one last question as we wrap up. I would like to ask you to tell me at least one thing, you can go to two, of what somebody could have done for you when you were in school and being trafficked. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. What someone could have done, believe me. Believe me. That's, believe me, period. Just
Thank you. That's really, really powerful. I think all of us would agree with that. But good answer. Cindy?
That she hit her head.
I
That's
know.
the answer. Believe me. Yeah, it's that safe, man, it's about trust. It's about safety, safe place. When you don't know what that is, you don't want to have to stand up for yourself and because somebody didn't believe you, because you know that's what you're going to deal with. So I think really having, oh wow, just having that safe place or that person, and maybe creating that within the school somewhere, that be part of, recognizing signs. What can we do to empower at risk? The at risk with youth. I mean, not everybody coming to school has a home. They're homeless. They're in shelters. It's just, safety.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Kwami, I remember you talked one time about you wore the same clothes to school, right? And how just somebody saying something could have helped you.
Yeah. Now, I attribute my my life to what I'm truly to my sister grade teacher. She the simplicity of seeing me as a human being changed the course of my life. She was able to put her life on the line for me, and she essentially said, "Hey, you are somebody worth saving. You are somebody worth loving," and she did just that. She gave me the tool, and like I said earlier, I come to school malnourished. When something I come to school dirty and smelly, and it's not that I trust her all at once, but I slowly start to trust her when I see her started to feed me, start to provide me with the basic needs that we take for granted, and that's food, clothing, and just the simple love and simple hi. That changed the course of my life. And she'll give me clothes too. I'll take a shower at school, and she'll provide me clothes. I wear that, and before I go back home, I change, put my old clothes back on, and because I know my traffic got to know where I'm getting this thing from. So it was just simple things like these make such a huge difference in my life to essentially trust her and give her just open up to her and say, I need your help. And she was able to put her life online for me, her job and her family online for me. I mean, I don't know who else could, any teacher who want to do that, but she did. Not knowing I was not even her kid. She didn't have to do that, but she did. But she saw a human being that is struggling, and she stepped in and said, I am here to help you. I'm here to help you. How can I do that? She was able to give me a choice. And in return, I told her, I'm one out of the house. And she did just that.
Wow. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it takes bravery, it takes guts to do that. But I mean, like you said, we're a child and a human being, and we shouldn't have to be going through that. For me, I would say that my teachers knew something was going on. They saw these older guys that were intimidating me, demanding things from me. They saw the change in me. But they never once said anything. A neighbor saw me running through his backyard at midnight with pajamas and no shoes on. Where does he think I was going? Why didn't he say anything to my parents? So really, we want you to say something, because you might see this top level of trauma, but you don't know all the other levels of trauma that we're going through. So we're just waiting for you to say something to us. And somebody did ask a question like, what do we say? For sex trafficking, it's like, are you being made to trade sex for something? Are you being made to do something you don't want to do? And we're not talking about your chores. Just saying, hey, can I help you? Like what Kwami said, what can I do for you? And not giving up. Keep asking those questions, because that's how you develop the trust for us. So I want to thank you all so much for being vulnerable and participating in this, so that we can educate our school administration and parents and students on how to do a better job at this, because with AI and the internet, it's not going anywhere, unfortunately. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, I would like
Thank
to.
you.
Before
you.
you all jump off, thank you also very much. I don't know, I just kept thinking the whole time while I was listening to you, it kind of, this old saying, right? It takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to protect a child. And you showed that it is really all these different people in a child's life, the teachers, but also the other students. It can be a resource officer, a social worker. There's so much that can be done to prevent this from happening, or to help a child that is already in the situation. So I really appreciate your perspective on this here. So it is almost 6 o'clock. I will pause the recording now, and we go on a quick break so everybody can shake out the legs for a moment. And then we are starting up again at 6:10 with 2 speakers who will provide specific resources for teachers. So what teachers can actually utilize in their lives, in their daily lives, in their teaching, to spread awareness, or to just also be better informed themselves. And one is actually the CLEAR program from the New Jersey Coalition. And then we also have Connect for Freedom here, which is a nonprofit organization that provides a lot of great resources for free for teachers. So we will show those two repositories of information for you to use. So I will, as I say, just go on a 10-minute break, and I hope to see you all back at 6:10. Thank you. Okay, welcome back everybody to our second session in tonight's event. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Danny Papa and Mimi Feliciano, and they will both share very useful resources for teachers. But before we do so, I would like to actually tell you a little bit about our two speakers. Dr. Danny Papa is the president of the coalition, the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking Board of Trustees and co-chair of the coalition's education committee. He's also the principal of the Arthur Stanley Elementary School in the Jefferson Township Public School District. As a history teacher, he partnered with his students to establish Project Stay Gold, a student movement to end human trafficking. Under his leadership, the students launched their Not on Our Turf campaign to raise awareness of human trafficking surrounding the Super Bowl being held in their state in 2014. He's an adjunct professor at East Stroudsburg University and completed his doctorate in historical studies at Drew University. And then our second speaker is Mimi Feliciano. She's the founder and CEO of Connect for Freedom, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide education stakeholders with awareness and education resources for the prevention of online exploitation and human trafficking for students in K-12 schools in New Jersey, with the goal of scaling it nationwide. Mimi is also the co-founder and CEO of FEM Real Estate, LLC, a real estate investment company launched in 2012, which develops, owns, and manages commercial real estate nationwide. Prior to that, Mimi spent 12 years as the owner and CEO of Lincoln Park Healthcare, the largest nursing home complex in New Jersey. Mimi is also the benefactor of the Mimi and Edwin Feliciano School of Business and Feliciano Center of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, as well as the Global Center for Human Trafficking, and they're all located at Montclair State University. So thank you both very much for being here with us tonight, and I will kick it over to Danny to tell us a little bit more about the resources that the coalition has developed.
Thank you, Danielle, and I want to thank Montclair State for this opportunity. I am an alumni of Montclair, proud to be, and I love the Global Center and all the work that you're doing there. And kudos to you for all the great work. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you for hosting me tonight and inviting me in. For our audience, I just want to begin and just tell you my personal story before I jump into the resources, and I'll be brief about it, because I feel like my story could be your story. And maybe this is a night where you've heard such a great opening presentation in the first hour. Maybe this is the first time you're really learning about the issue of human trafficking. And maybe it sparks something inside of you, right? And when I know that in my story, when I first learned about human trafficking in 2004, I felt very compelled that I had to do something about it. I didn't know really what to do except for the organization that opened my eyes to the issue. I just started donating to. I still donate to them to this day. They do amazing work. They're an organization out of Connecticut, and I love the work that they do. And I just started donating to them. And a few years later, when I was teaching, little did I know that something that was a passion of my heart, that I would share that passion with my students, and it would become a passion of theirs. And so when I was teaching in 2010 in the fall, I was teaching 8th grade U.S. history, and I made a connection between slavery, the introduction of slavery in the Jamestown colony in 1619, and the issue of modern day slavery. And my opening do now question of the lesson was, does slavery still exist today? And the students looked at me like, what are you talking about, Mr. Papa? Slavery obviously doesn't exist today. And we went into the lesson, and I made a connection between slavery in the past and modern day slavery. I went through an interactive website on the smartboard. And at the end of the lesson, a student came up to me and said, Mr. Papa, can you give me that website that you showed the class? I gave that web address to a very quiet and unassuming student that I didn't really know too well. It was October, and like I said, she was very quiet. And that Monday, she came back and she looked at me and said, Mr. Papa, I spent the weekend learning about modern day slavery and human trafficking, and we have to do something about it. And it was just so amazing, because the same reaction that I had, felt compelled to do something about this heinous crime that I first learned about. She felt that same pulling, right? And that same, she was compelled to do something about it. And I just find that so amazing. What I noticed as an educator is that young people have a unique sensitivity to injustice. And when they learn about injustice, they want to do something about it. And what I'm going to share with you tonight, in my story, as well as in these resources, the heart of what we are doing at the coalition in using education as a means of prevention, at the heart of that is, yes, we want to inspire our kids, but but inspiration is to me level one. But we want to get students to the next level. We want inspiration to spark empowerment. And what we want to do in this issue is we want to empower our young people to be the voice for their generation. This is a crime, as you just learned about. And as you begin to study about it, this is a crime that a large percentage of this crime impacts young people, impacts kids, teenagers, college age students. So what we feel as an effective strategy of prevention is to empower young people to be the ones with the knowledge and the skills and the resources to look out and empower their generation to be the ones to really recognize the warning signs, the risk factors, and to be the ones that make a difference in this issue. And that's what our goal is here tonight. How do we empower our kids? So with getting back to my students, so I said to the student, well, what would you like to do? What's your idea? She's like, why don't we start an awareness campaign here in our middle school? I said, okay, that's great. So we launched an after school club. We spent about 6 months learning the issue, doing research. We reached out to a number of different organizations to find out more. The students put together awareness posters. We planned a week in the end of March, and the students went in and they created lessons. They went in and taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade social studies lessons about modern day slavery and human trafficking. They made announcements that every morning of that week during the awareness week, and they hung up the posters around the school. What was so interesting was there were so many teachers coming up to me saying, Mr. Papa, what in the world are these kids talking about? I've never heard of this, right? And here we had our students educating the educated, right, on the issue. And it was so amazing to see. They would come back from the lessons. They were like, Mr. Papa, I still remember this like it was yesterday. Coming back, Mr. Papa, those lessons went so great. They had so many questions. Even the teachers had questions about what we were talking about. We can't stop here. We have to do more. Well, okay, well, what more do you want to do? We want to educate other districts, right? We want to bring our awareness outside of here. Okay, well, how are we going to do that? Well, let's launch a website. Let's create some PSAs and some videos. Let's really begin to, get our message out there. And that's exactly what we did that summer. We created a website. We created some PSAs. We did a big launch party that following December. We had an awareness campaign or awareness event at night on a Friday night in our school library. We had over 250 people come out. We invited Kathy Freeze from the Attorney General's office to share with the public about the issue of human trafficking. And at that awareness event, she said to me, she said, Mr. Papa, would your kids be willing to come and give this presentation that they gave here at the Attorney General's first annual Human Trafficking Awareness Day in Trenton? And I said, absolutely. We got our school was able to get us a bus. We took a bus down to Trenton that January. And that was the first January where President Barack Obama acknowledged the month of January as Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and the day, January 11th, as Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And our kids gave a 45-minute presentation at the State House with the Attorney General sitting in the front row and many different people in law enforcement and government and just, very passionate citizens there. They gave an amazing presentation. And at the end of the presentation, Attorney General Jeff Keyes came up to me and said, Mr. Papa, I have to have these kids in my office. We need to partner on this issue. This is an issue I'm passionate about as well. And from there were so many opportunities that opened up for the students to give presentations at government at government events, at local schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges. Wherever we were invited, the students went, and they were very passionate about speaking about human trafficking prevention. So through there, we launched a nonprofit organization called Project Stay Gold. The students ended up moving on to high school. And then many of the students, when they moved on to college, they started chapters at their colleges and universities like TCNJ and Dartmouth, and Boston College. And there were a number of chapters that they ended up launching because they were empowered, right? They learned about something, they took action. Originally, they were inspired, but their inspiration turned into empowerment. Through all of that work that we did, we actually met many of the members of the coalition that are still part of the coalition today. And from there, just started serving, attending the monthly meetings. I was asked to be a board member. And then from there in 2018, was elected to be the president of the board of trustees. And it's been such an honor to work for such an incredible organization here. So what I'd like to do is, for a few minutes here, is just really roll out what is called our CLEAR protocol. And again, this is very much based on how do we, yes, inspire our kids, right, through education and knowledge, but then how do we put the tools in their hands to really empower them to make a difference? So everything that I'm going to share with you here today is very practical. It's something that any educator could do. It really just takes the willingness and the passion on the educator's part to be that facilitator and to really be the one that helps the students achieve their goals and accomplish what they want to set out to do. And so I'm going to just share my screen here and just give you, okay. So what the CLEAR program is based upon something that we started, it was, let me think now, 2 years prior to the pandemic. So we launched it originally in 2018, where we did something called a Locker Slam. And what the Locker Slam was, schools from all over the state could sign up, and we would send for free awareness kits. And in the awareness kits were magnets that students could put on their lockers. And all the magnets had all different quotes and facts and statistics about human trafficking. And it was a way for students to start a conversation on their campuses. And so we did the Locker Slam, and then the pandemic happened. And then we launched the virtual Locker Slam, where students were able to take a number of the different icons and things that we created and put them on their social media platforms. Teachers could put them on Google Classroom and things like that. Virtual stickers is what we call them. And then from there, once we moved out of the pandemic, we went into creating magnets as well, but then stickers for water bottles and decals and clear like window decals and so on. That had questions about, really prompting students to ask questions of their peers about who is DMing you, and who might be who is following you, who's commenting, right? And just really get students to begin to think critically about what's happening on social media and how they're interacting and who they're communicating with and how they're communicating, and so on. So but what we wanted to do was we really wanted to expand that Locker Slam to really provide a comprehensive program that teachers could use and schools could use. So we call it the CLEAR program. It's an acronym, as you see here. And what we're saying is that it's a 5-step prevention education program to make human trafficking clear to students. So I'll just briefly, talk through each one of these points. So first is comprehension, and it really begins like it did with my students. We spent about 6 months researching the issue, right? It's about learning and comprehending the gravity of this issue. And there's a lot of complexities here. And, we've created resources to help with that. But what we really feel at the heart of all of this is that the comprehension piece really begins with students learning about the issue from survivors and individuals with lived experiences. So the coalition, when a school applies for to be part of the CLEAR program, through grants and so on, the coalition will fund a speaker, a survivor speaker, to go to the school and speak to the group of students, speak to the teacher, and that the education piece, the HT 101, would really begin first and foremost by being informed and learning from a survivor leader who will clearly communicate the HT 101. Obviously, there's a number of other resources that we've made available to teachers on our website, as well as our lesson plans website, that could be great as far as educational pieces, as well as teachers and students are researching. And then the in-class education piece. So if we move to the E, that will stem from the online lesson plans that we have created. So in 2020, the Department of Education revised the comprehensive health and PE standards. And when they revised those New Jersey student learning standards, they included 7 different standards about human trafficking prevention in the 6th to 8th grade band and in the 9th to 12th grade band. And so we saw a real need here. And the need was that teachers in New Jersey that are going to be teaching about human trafficking prevention need resources, and they need them for free, and they need them to be created in a platform that they're very familiar with. So we created a Google site. Everything that we've created here is on the Google platform. And for teachers and districts that use Google Apps for Education, they know very clearly that they'll be able to take these lesson plans and they'll be able to make a copy and make it their own and modify it however they would like. So as the teacher is using these lesson plans in the educational piece, what we have here, just a very quick overview, are the lesson plans. So the lesson plans here, and these lessons were created in collaboration with New Jersey educators and survivors. And the process was survivor informed from the beginning. So here's just an overview. Here are the goals and objectives of the lesson overview, and some prompting thoughts for the teacher as far as how the discussion could work. Here are the standards, some questions for discussion, and then this is how the activity would roll out. So essentially what would happen is each lesson has been designed around a video. The video is an interview with a New Jersey student, either a high school or college student, interviewing. In this case, it's Rachel Thomas. She's a fantastic educator and a survivor of human trafficking. So this student is interviewing her specifically about recruitment strategies, as that was one of the largest highlights that we saw in the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. So the teacher will play the video, the students will watch the video. There's some questions for discussion following that. And then the extension activity is that the teacher will lead the students in groups. So break students into groups of 4 or 5, and then they would go through a number of different scenarios. And the scenarios are very much based on the video interview with the survivor. Here's discussion questions. If the teacher takes this and puts this in Google Classroom, then the students could obviously type their answers in. The teacher could print it out and they can write their responses. But these questions are very much extending their thinking, critical thinking questions about the actions and the decisions that are made in the scenarios by the different characters here, by the different individuals. And again, we're asking the students to think back to what they learned in the video as they go through the scenario. Each lesson comes with a vocabulary and related key terms, just to provide the teacher as well as the students with some additional information, and really breaking down some of the terms that they may hear in the video or that they may see in the scenario, so they can refer to this key term sheet as well. And then there's some just additional resources. And then so we have a lesson on recruitment strategies, a lesson on online grooming, a lesson on human trafficking legislation, where we interview Assemblywoman McKnight and Representative Congressman Chris Smith. And there's a high school student who interviews both. In the second online grooming interview, the student interviews retired Lieutenant John Pizarro, who was the commander of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, who is a content expert, and he provides a lot of great information. And then finally, the resources page here has our New Jersey Department of Education human trafficking guidelines, as well as the Federal Department of Education's human trafficking guidelines. And for teachers who really want to learn more, we highly recommend the Polaris Project Human Trafficking asynchronous self-paced training course here that you can access here as well. So that's the education piece. And then ultimately, we want to prompt students to take action. The locker slam, as I described, is a great example. We had a school that made did such an amazing job that their local newspaper covered it. So they were expanding the conversation just from inside the walls of their school to now the entire community and beyond was learning about human trafficking as the newspaper began to cover what they did through the locker slam. And then finally, the R is for response. Student response and empowerment by undertaking their own project, right? So we can give them like a package program like Locker Slam that they can do, but then we really strongly encourage them to do maybe even much more than that. I personally think hosting an awareness night or an HT 101 for their community at their public library or in their school library is another really great place where students take on the initiative of hosting an event, invite a content expert, invite a survivor. They could work with the coalition. We could provide speakers through our Speakers Bureau to attend that awareness night. But ultimately, what we would want in that night is we want students to talk. We want students to present. We always encourage students to to use whatever mode of communication that they felt comfortable with. So maybe it was, using art to express, what they have learned and the way they want to prevent human trafficking through art or through music. There's so many different avenues. Our students are so incredibly talented, and they have so many different ways to communicate their passion. So again, the CLEAR program is the comprehension piece, learning about human trafficking through a one-on-one presentation. We would recommend by having that presentation hosted and spoken by a survivor, an individual with lived experience. Go deeper into the education piece by using our lesson plans, take action with a locker slam, but then, even beyond that, to take it really to the next level. And the response piece is to do much more. And there's a number of different ways that we can work with educators as well as students on how we can do that response piece to a really effective way. So I'm just going to end right there. And I really appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, I'd love to take them at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danny. I appreciate that. And next up is Mimi Feliciano, the CEO of Connect for Freedom. So I will just actually take my...
Danny, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I have so much to share about Connect for Freedom. And as you know, it started right here at Montclair State University when we started the Global Center, which we started about 2017. We started with a think tank at Montclair, and President Cole allowed us at the time to put together any interested people that on campus that wanted to work on this subject. And a lot of people came together, and I know, Danny, you were one of us. And we started to research and have discussions and roundtables on what is the solution to this problem. And we realized that the real solution is to educate kids, because they're the ones being targeted and they're the ones that need the education. So from there, we realized that we have to do something, and we decided we're going to create a nonprofit to help with the disconnect, and we call it Connect for Freedom. So I am excited to share that with you today. We have the website that I wanted to show you so you can understand what we're doing and what it's all about. So let's do that. Okay, so here's our website, Connect for Freedom. And our mission is, we believe that prevention through education is the solution. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit committed to providing free online exploitation, human trafficking awareness, and prevention education materials to K-12 schools. The key word here is free. We've put together resources that we could find all over the website, and we even include the New Jersey Coalition plans as well. We go K through 12. We do all the grades, and we are obviously, we meet or exceed the New Jersey Department of Education mandate requirements, and that includes K through 12 lesson plans. And lesson plans include assessments and games and materials, handouts. We have faculty training, we have response protocol, and parent presentations and information training for parents. They really want to know, what they could do to be involved to protect their kids. And we also we meet the not only the requirements, the recommendations. We have student engagement activities available and after school programs, particularly for those at-risk kids. We really think that, they would benefit the most from some kind of after school education. So this is a picture of our landing page. And this is the actual website that I know it's very hard to read, so I'm just gonna try and point some things out to you here. So this is where the lesson plan, everything on the left on this side is what we provide as an explanation. A lesson plan is here, an explanation of the student engagement is here, and it just goes on explaining. So we broke it into section for teachers, which is lesson plans and student engagement. Under lesson plans are 3 different categories, elementary, K through 5. We actually break it down from kindergarten to 2nd grade, and then 3rd through 5th. And then, of course, middle school and high school. And then, of course, the after school engagement ideas. So this is for teachers. Then we had a section for principals and superintendents. We made it really easy. I mean, the key word here is connect. So we have to make it easy to connect those dots. So the first section here, I know it's very hard to read. It's the school district implementation and protocol. So basically we spell out in steps how to implement this, starting with getting a resolution. We have a sample resolution passed at the school board level, and a letter to parents goes right out saying this program is coming, and we show them where the faculty training is, giving it to the staff. It basically shows the steps, every step. There's a point of contact person that really supports every step of this so that it makes it easy. And it actually, we have display kits that, again, in the implementation, we tell the principals where to find it, where to download it, so that they could show these display kits before the program starts. Again, I know this is really hard to read, but it's after school programs are here and the parent presentation is here. It's all under the principals and superintendents so that they could lead this program effectively. Then we have for SROs and security directors, it's basically the training there. And for all school staff, we have response protocol and faculty training. So, under parent engagement here, we actually have a presentation and we have a training guide and we have a lot of resources. The key is to give parents the material and the resources they really need to support their kids and protect their kids. One of the things we even provide them is a tech agreement, because we encourage them to talk to their kids and have an understanding and parameters around their digital time. We're proud to say we're currently in approximately 85,000, with 85,000 students are involved with 149 schools. However, it is our goal to bring this all around the state. And we do believe this is mostly just Passaic County, by the way, most of this 85,000, but we are teeing up to go into a few other counties by the end of the year. And those numbers are going to go up dramatically, probably closer to 600,000 or 700,000. Eventually, our goal is to get through the whole state. And one of the things you want to prove is efficacy, making sure that it works. So Dr. Johnson, who is here with me tonight, along with Eileen Schaefer, who's a retired principal. So Eileen Schaefer was the retired superintendent of Patterson School District for many, many years. And Dr. Johnson is a retired principal from there. And she is leading the action research study. So we have one school piloted, there'll approximately 65 students. And she has a mixed methodology research approach with quantitative and qualitative data. And the objective is to provide is this really going to provide meaningful social change? And that's what we're out to prove. And hopefully we'll see a big improvement from the pre-test and the post-test. And that's our goal. All of our materials have been compiled from either government-sponsored place or a very reputable nonprofit. So we have the Department of Homeland Security's Blue Campaign. A lot of our material comes from there. And that's why it's all free. It's on the internet. We just organized it. There's Polaris Project information, Thorn, NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have a great program. Our K through 5 program is pretty much all of their material. And of course, we have the New Jersey Coalition, their program, and there's a link to get to their website from ours, because our mission is just to bring everyone together and make it comprehensive and complete. And any other government endorsed agencies or reputable nonprofit organizations will take their information and we'll put it on our website as well. So this is what the NJCAHT K-5 program is. They have videos and they have handout materials. They have presentations. It's suitable and very age appropriate. And in this case, they do it assembly style presentations because it's just easier for those schools to present it to as an assembly. And there are 4 lesson plans with that. I want to show you a sample of a video, very short, that you can get a sense of how age appropriate it really is.
Hey, come on, man. Oh, sorry. What are you guys doing? Oh, nothing. Just drawing.
Excuse me, kids. I'm kind of lost. Can one of you come over here and help me? I'll even give you $5.
Yes.
It's almost time for lunch, kids.
But Mom, that man needs directions. Hey, where's my $5?
Who is that?
We don't know. He was lost and asked for our help.
I hope you weren't thinking about going over there.
But isn't it nice to help people?
Adults shouldn't ask children that they don't know for help. If they do, you should check first.
Check first.
That's right. If an adult that you don't know asks you to do something or go somewhere, you should check first with the adult in charge.
Check first. That's easy to remember.
So what would you do if an adult you didn't know asked you to help find a lost puppy?
Check first.
And what would you do if an adult you didn't know offered you $5 to keep a secret?
Check first.
Or if an adult you didn't know offered you a ride to school?
Check first. Check first. Check first.
That's right. Good job. Now let's all go inside and check on lunch.
Yes.
So as you can see, that is a, here we go. So as you can see, that is a totally age appropriate video. There are 4 of them, and that's our elementary school level program. And with that, in the K-5, it's hard to see here, but there are age appropriate posters and you know, that could go on the wall as well. So then when we get to middle school, we really get into more online safety. This is again all part of the requirements for the mandate, and sextortion and protecting yourself from online predators and healthy relationships. So these are 4 lesson plans that are organized. Again, they have the teacher assessments already. They have games included. And in their display kits, it's a little bit different. The message there, it actually says, you know, you can say no. It shows some examples here of scenarios where someone's getting, being targeted and showing the way that they're being targeted, you know, online, and then the responses that you could say no. And these blue, we call them these little blue people, these blue posters are basically, again, this is all free. Everything here you could download at a school level. And this is meant to be a boy and a girl. And here it's supposed to be their story of how they were victimized, in this case with, if it's 6th through 8th grade, it would be online. And if it's in high school, it would include trafficking as well. But these are, you know, real stories of real people. Of course, you know, there's no names, but I think, you know, kids really relate to hearing how it really happens. This is the high school program, very similar to what we saw already, except we added at the bottom, you know, sex trafficking, and we get into actual human trafficking and sex trafficking from online, you know, online enticement. And to show the difference of the type of training they would get, here's a video for the, for the older kids.
Okay.
Oops, sorry.
Okay. Stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special. Why are you doing this?
So you could see how that's a very different, let's see what we got here. Here we go. Very different and appropriate for the, for their audience. These are some of the games you actually play to learn the lesson. This is part of the lesson plans that we play Jeopardy and bingo and some other, there's lots of games that they play to get them to remember this material. Now, student engagement activities, is basically, outside the classroom. It was extra things they could do. There's the Red Sand Project. There's, Out of the Shadows, basically stories that they, like I showed before, these stories are all survivor stories. We have a lot of them on the website, and they could research and put those around. There's art displays, there's movies. They could, there's My Freedom Day here. And a lot of activities. And the after-school programs, like I had said earlier, are really focused on healthy relationships, and they're particularly helpful for students that are at high risk for being vulnerable for exploitation. The faculty awareness training, which is all part of this as well. We have free training modules that are completely remote. These are some of the courses that are available online. So we have the Polaris training. We also have the NECMEC Connect training courses, and the Department of Homeland Security Youth Professional and Caretaking Human Trafficking Awareness Training. This is a terrific one, and they have guides that go with it. There's a Exodus Road Human Trafficking, anything we could find that's free and that was reputable and online, we included. Of course, the Office for Victims of Crime of Human Trafficking training, and the Sanar Institute Training and Education. These are these plus others, a lot of resources there. And we provide response protocol. This is basically, there's a mandatory reporting when there is an issue, and we just make it easy to find the phone numbers and who to contact for support for each district. And the parent presentation. Now, this is a really important component. I mean, first of all, the parents want to get involved. They don't know what to do. And it tells that, first of all, it explains that this program is coming to their school district, and it introduces the K through 12 lesson plan so they understand what their kids are learning, similar to what we just shared. And the program discusses the dangers of online enticement, extortion, and human trafficking. And there's a lot of resources that we provide. Training guides, the tech agreement I was mentioning is so important for the parents to to start discussing this with their kids. And it actually has discussion guides. It shows, depending on what subject they want to talk about specifically, exactly what to say. And if, and it basically, there's like a role model scenario. There's scenarios where it says, if the child says this, then say that. So if the parent keeps getting hitting a wall and the child keeps, saying they don't really want to talk about it, it says what to say next. So it's very, very helpful for parents where they just don't know where to start and they don't know what to do when they get stopped. So, and of course, parent controls for all the digital. And this is meant to be for parents and caregivers. That's what it's designed for. And so what we've done is we have this pre-recorded and it could just be presented for a parent presentation, but we want to have, this is meant to be a real opportunity to bring in law enforcement so that they, whether it's the sheriff or prosecutor's office, we had a wonderful someone from the Union County Prosecutor's Office did a fabulous parent presentation. It really opened up the dialogue, and it really was nice for parents to know that it's really happening in their community, because parents really don't even believe it. They're thinking, okay, this must be happening somewhere else in a different state, in a different, in a city somewhere, but not in our backyard. And these law enforcement people, the representatives, are able to say this is happening right here, and we're here to help. We actually got, because again, we started with Passaic County. Most of the 85,000 students are from, and the prosecutors from Passaic County actually gave a short video about it, and so they obviously are very supportive. It's so important to have collaboration, because we really, we have to connect everyone. So at Connect for Freedom, we believe that all the stakeholders need to collaborate and connect to really make a difference. So hopefully we will, this answers most of the questions about our website. And I am, again, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to share this website and go through it. And I hope that that your audience, you all find it helpful, and we're always here to help. So so thank you for inviting us, and we welcome your input and your support.
So thank you both so very much. Really appreciate you sharing your knowledge in this area and your resources. I think that will definitely be helpful for our attendees. Now, from the attendees, if you have any questions, you can just type them into the Q&A box. I'll just give it a minute or so to see if we have any questions coming in. Okay, there is a thing about will the presentation be shared? So the webinar is being recorded, and so that will be made available through the Coalition and the Global Center on Human Trafficking. Then another question is, are the videos in other languages? I'm assuming it's the videos on your website, Mimi.
Yes. So I believe that they come from NJCAHT or wherever they come from. I mean, they're in English, but I believe there might be a technological way to get them in Spanish. I'm pretty sure those videos come in Spanish too, because I know from NJCAHT they do.
Yeah, many of them are available, at least in those two languages. Yeah. Okay, so then I don't see any. Oh, there's another question that came. How do you handle a situation where a student doesn't want you as a teacher to tell other people and you don't want to lose their trust?
Who is the question to?
I don't know, both of you, but maybe Danny, if you want to jump in as a.
And I have my principal and a superintendent answering those education questions on my behalf, because they're the experts on that.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, we're mandated reporters, right? So if any aspect of abuse that a child discloses to an educator, we are legally obligated to report it to DCPMP as well as our local police. So it is a very tough thing. It's a tightrope that we walk. We want students to trust us. We may be the only trusted adults that a student has in their lives. When they walk into our school buildings, they may not trust anyone outside of school, right? So we do want them to trust us. We do want them to share if they're facing any sort of threat, abuse, challenge, and to know that we care for them. And because we care for them, we report it. Yes, we report it because we're legally obligated to, but we also know that the authorities are the ones that can intervene in a positive way, right? So in the moment, the student may be upset, that it gets reported, or a student may no longer trust, but at the end of the day, when they look back at it, they'll see that by making that call to DCPMP, we're doing it because we care about them, and we know that the authorities have far more resources than we do as educators. That we're reporters, they're the ones that will investigate and provide all of the restorative practices and resources that they need.
Thank you. Mimi, do you want to share something, or?
I did, I don't know if you could put on Karen or Eileen, who, but I totally agree with Danny. That's exactly how we feel about it. They're mandated to, you're mandated reporters at school. So we have no opinion. Our entire job is just to provide information and make it easy for everyone to get, starting with the materials that we put together, and then whatever the response protocol is, it is. And we're there to provide resources that are very credible and reputable.
Yeah,
and
one other thing I just
engaged
wanted to mention with that too, for the educators that are listening, we've worked very closely with other organizations in other states, and we're very much on the same page as far as taking this stance for educators, that we realize that human trafficking is an extremely complex issue, and it feels extremely overwhelming when we begin to think about the impacts that it will have or does have on our students. But to make it very simple, and because educators receive training every single year on child abuse protocols, that that any form of trafficking, whether it's a student being threatened online, sextortion, or any aspects of trafficking or grooming and so on, when it's reported to an educator must report that as abuse, right? They're a minor, they're a child, it's a form of abuse, and it needs to be reported as abuse. And I think when educators hear that, it resonates because they're very familiar with the reporting protocols. And as I always say, and I've been saying, regretfully, I've had to make way too many calls to DCPMP. The only thing that brings me any solace is that knowing that they're going to do what they need to do, and they're the experts to provide the whatever that student needs in that moment. But they are trained, and they do ask every single time, are there any signs of human trafficking? So that could be where, an educator says, well, the student disclosed this and this and this, which does seem like it could be trafficking, right? And then, not only does DCPMP, the statewide agency, then take a look at what's going on here and investigate, but we also report it to our local authority. So it's almost like a dual reporting, right? So that abuse, so we report any aspects of trafficking as abuse, and let the authorities, local as well as the state, investigate it.
That's right. That's exactly what we say on our website.
And I do think we have another comment from, I know it's not Megan. I don't know who's hiding out behind the name.
It's either
Can you
Eileen
hear
or
me? It's Eileen. Can you hear
go
me?
ahead, our
Yes.
superintendent.
Okay. And good evening, everyone. And I certainly agree with everything Danny said. But what we would tell our staff was that when a child comes to you and you are, you could be the only trusted adult that they know and that they really trust, we would always say to them, if it's harmful to you or someone else, just know that it's going to be reported. We don't have a choice. We have to report it. So in other words, we want them to feel at ease and know ahead of time, this is going to be reported. We're not investigating it. As soon as you say something, when there's any type of abuse, whether it's sexual, whether it's human trafficking, physical abuse, we have to report it because it could be harmful to you. And if the child really trusts you, we would let them know that the authorities are going to take care of this and you're not going to have to deal with it anymore. So we try to make them feel as comfortable as possible so that they will continue to trust you, but that they will also tell you exactly what the problem is. And once you have that conversation with them, they do settle in and they do tell you. And you're always going to be there for them because you're that trusted adult that they know cares about them. So there is, some trying to smooth that over, as Danny said, but we are required. We're the reporters, and you have to do it. But in the end, those children always make out better.
Thank you very much, Eileen. We have another question. I think we have time for that. A quick one. What is the amount of time these programs take to implement in a school or school district?
Say that again.
What is the amount of time these programs take to implement in a school or a school district?
I can answer from my side. So once they start and they're approved, which takes one board meeting to get, most of them want to get that resolution passed. They could start immediately. Everything is there for them. I would say within 30 days, they could get their staff trained and they could, once they're allowed to start, they have to get the letter out to the parents. They have to download, the display kits. They have to tell the faculty where the training is. The teachers have to absorb the lesson plans and figure out. It's usually the health teacher, really. It's just that. So within a month, I think they could get started if they want to go quick. But realistically, maybe longer.
Danny, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would say that within a school year, it's definitely practical and possible to receive the HT 101, to research the issue, to plan out what that level of engagement might be, a locker slam or so on, and then what they want to do beyond that. So, yeah, I would say they could do it without a doubt within a year. But I think that the education piece and the research piece is extremely important. So they really, are armed with knowledge, and they're really able to speak with authority because they have the confidence in what they've learned.
Thank you. Okay, we've come to the end of this session, so thank you both so much for being here with us tonight and for sharing your information and resources. This is the end of the webinar, so if you are not coming with us into the next session, then we want to thank you all for being here with us tonight. But if you're interested to learn a little bit more hands-on how this can look like in teaching practice on a day-to-day basis, then please hop onto the other Zoom meeting just so we can actually talk with each other. So thank you all very much, and I wish you all a good evening. Bye-bye.